What is going on, everybody? Are you ready for this new year? Are you ready to make 2025 the best ever?
Strong and wild, we rise up high. Conquer fears, won't let them reside. Heartbeats pound as we take the dive. Living now feels so alive. Heart steel veins glowing bright. Fitness gone in the dead of night. Daily game, we got the sight. Crushing finance, career out of sight. Men of now, we own it true. Breaking change, just me and you. Success stories everywhere. Living life beyond compare.
What is going on, everybody? I am so excited for this. What a great way to start off the year 2025. We have seen a lot of crazy things go on in 2024. 2025 is already shaping up very interestingly. I mean, heck, what today Trump was saying that we're now going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America.
Love
I
it.
just love the nonsense. But today we are incredibly blessed to have a discussion with Nicky here. Nicky is a business coach who helps entrepreneurs. I mean, I don't, you know what? I don't even want to speak for you, but everything that I've heard about you and being connected to you through Paul from Come On Man podcast, like, you know what the heck you're talking about. You really know what you're talking about, and you just evolve people to the highest echelons that I guess they never really knew were available when it was all right there in front of them. So, Nikki, go ahead and introduce yourself to the audience and tell us a little bit about what it is that you do.
Well, first of all, thank you so much for having me on the show. It's a pleasure and it's an honor to be here. A great way to start 2025. And I'm originally an immigrant from the Middle East. I'm a Christian from Iran. When I was 11 years old, back in 1978, the Islamic Revolution took place in Iran. And my late father, God rest his soul, he could see the writing on the wall that this was not going to be a place to raise a Christian family. So he got together with my mom. They talked and they made a decision that they were going to get us out of Iran and move us to the free West. And it took them a few years, but eventually, 4 years later, I was in Canada with my two brothers, my mom, and later on my dad. Now, at the time, I was a kid, right? I didn't want to leave my home. I didn't want to leave my friends. Okay. But looking back with hindsight, this was the single greatest thing mom and dad could have done for me and my two brothers. They took us from a legacy of tyranny to a legacy of freedom. And I believe inside every human breast beats the living heart of freedom. Every man, every woman on this planet wants to chart their own course, wants to march to the tune of their own drummer. And if you're an entrepreneur, if you're a coach like you men are, you want a bedrock of freedom in the society that you live in and operate in. Because without freedom, you can't have free expression. You can't do podcasts like this. And without free expression, you can't have free enterprise, which means you can't chart your own course business-wise. So that's why I think it's so important that you stand up for freedom, that you support people in power that believe in freedom. I mean, thankfully, yesterday, the tyrant in chief in Canada, Justin Trudeau, was forced to resign. You know, and I thank President Donald Trump for that. The pressure that he put on him with the tariffs kind of made the people in his own government see that this guy was a loser and it was time to get rid of him. And I believe very soon we're going to have a sane government again. And not to have this be a political discussion, but I believe if you're an entrepreneur, you need to be a philosopher for freedom. Because if you're not, you know what I'm saying? If you're one of those people who goes, well, I don't want to talk about politics or get into politics. I'm not into politics. I'm here to tell you one thing. Politics is into you. like it or not, you've got to stand up for freedom. You've got to support figures in the public realm that are for freedom. You've got to support politicians that are about leaving you alone and not telling you how to raise your kids or whether or not your 5-year-old can decide what gender they are and crap like that. It's super, super, super important that we as entrepreneurs take a stand first and foremost. And that stand gives us the moral authority to go pursue our dreams.
No, it's a really interesting point. I mean, heck, when I look at what Elon Musk has done and kind of the stance that he takes, he's all for that freedom of speech. He's all for that freedom. And what happened? Well, I'm pretty sure Tesla stock went crazy high. I'm pretty sure that he's got his grips on a lot of different things, and I'm pretty sure he knows what he's talking about. And that's what really is. I mean, that's kind of what it means to live, like not just to live as an entrepreneur, but like to just live in general, is to live a free life and enjoy it the way that you want to enjoy it, as long as you're not hurting others. And I think that that's one of those things that does get lost, where it becomes a narrative where you have to fit a certain mold, or you think you have to fit a certain mold to be successful. Yet I think the authenticity that comes with that freedom is really what makes the most successful people as successful as they are.
Amen. Amen. Well said. Brilliantly said.
And it's definitely interesting to see, right, how the sort of shift is kind of, there's a ripple effect, right? Because I mean, one thing was just today, Meta CEO Mark Zuckerberg announced that he's doing away with all the fact checkers, right, to do a little bit more of a democratic notes type process of modeling after X. So it's definitely interesting seeing how that shift is. So, my question for you would be, now with that sort of basis of freedom, that you found and had when you came here, how did that impact your journey into leading you down the path that's led you to where you are today?
Great question. So actually, it comes from my father. My father was an entrepreneur and he was a champion for freedom. If you met my father, you men would love that man. If you were looking for work and you were a friend of my dad's, he'd sit you down in his office. He'd either give you a job himself or he'd call all his entrepreneur buddies until one of them gave you a job. If you were trying to start a business, he'd sit down with you, he'd listen to your ideas, and he'd help you get started, get you access to capital. He'd give you good feedback, get you access to clients. And if you were a friend of his in Iran and you were trying to buy a car or a house and the bank wouldn't give you quite enough money, keep in mind, Iran was a second world country. Banking system wasn't as advanced this year. Dad would sit down with you and he'd give you a loan to top you up so you could buy that car or that house, but he'd never let you pay it back. And if you tried to pay it back, he said, come on, get out of here. And people would say to me, Nicky, what are you talking about? Is that for real? And I go, yeah, that's for real. They go, it sounds too good to be true. And I go, no, man, that's for real. They go, who would do that? Why would he do that? What's the percentage in it for him? Well, I'll tell you. First and foremost, he was a devout and committed Christian. He believed that he'd been blessed by his Lord and Savior, Jesus Christ. And it was his duty to share those blessings with his fellow man and woman. Secondly, he did it because he could. He was successful. He was rich, guys. Rich. I wanted to be like my dad. I wanted to be somebody who helped people, who people looked up to. When I was growing up, my father, he would always tell me, son, life is about people, not about money. And I go, okay, Dad. And he'd also say to me, life, son, is not just about people. Even business is about people. And I'm going, Dad, what are you talking about? Business is about money. Without money, you can't do any business. He goes, that's true, son, but without people, there's no need for money to do business. Because all business is solving problems for people for profit. That's the purpose of business. PPP, P. So think about this. My father would say to me, son, everybody needs someone to believe in them. You, me, everybody. Because there are moments where our belief in ourselves wobbles. And when that happens, you need someone to give you that little spark of belief that'll take you to the next level. Because that little spark of belief can turn into a roaring fire. And there's a lot I know about business. I've helped a lot of people make a lot of money. HUDs, including your friend Paul. he's one of my clients, and it's a blessing to get to work with him and see his success and be a part of his success. And I'm proud of all of that. I'm proud of all my knowledge. I'm proud of everything I've done. What I'm most proud of is I'm my father's son. I'm Napoleon Billou's son, and I'm a professional believer in people.
Oh my God, dude, I love that. That's something that, quite honestly, I've only really digested and learned over the past couple of years, is how everything really just comes down to people. It just comes down to people. And wow, that's, I mean, I'm sorry, that's just it's a really, you were, I love how you said that your father believed he was blessed, so he wanted to share his blessings with everyone. That's a really, really powerful statement. And one of the questions that I kind of have for you on this is, for somebody out there who maybe doesn't have as great of a light in their life, how do they find people like you? How do they find the right types of mentors, even if it's just like local mentors? How do they find those types of people to even start helping them, like not just helping them, but to believe in them?
When the student is ready, the teacher will appear. To be successful at anything, man, in life, anything, the first thing you have to do is you got to be decisive. You got to make a decision. So maybe you're telling me you do your coaching and your podcast and you got a day job. Maybe the decision you have to make, Huds, is you got to say, by the end of this year, I'm going to go full time on my own business. That's a decision, right? That's a decision. It's not I'd like to, I'll see what happens. Let me see if I can do it. No, it's a firm, commanding decision. Okay? In scripture, God tells us to firmly command that which we want to bring forth. All right? So that's number one. Secondly, you got to be committed, buddy. You got to be committed to learn to get good at it, because you're going to, and I'm going to use a technical business term, you're going to suck at it first. That's the technical business term, right? You are going to suck at it first. But once, you make that commitment, you're going to go from sucking to just mediocre. And then you'll go from mediocre to average. And then from average to good, and good to great, and great to masterful. And from masterful to the best that ever was. That's the progression. But you got to make that commitment. Okay. February 2nd, 2023, 23 months ago, I was 55 years old. I had my shirt off. I was wearing my jeans. And I caught a glimpse of myself in the mirror, and I was disgusted with what I saw. I weighed 227 pounds. Okay.
Wait,
5'11".
How tall are you?
5'11".
Jesus Christ.
I had my gut sticking over my jeans. And I've got this wonderful, gorgeous woman who, isn't fat, never has been, right? And I just made a decision that moment that after 12 years of gaining weight, because I used to be a top fitness coach, I used to work with Olympic champions, that I was going to turn this around. And I made a commitment that I would do whatever it took. I'd learn how to succeed at 55, because it was very different at 55 than it was at 35. And then I made another decision that I was going to be coachable and hire a coach. So I hired a coach. And I spoke to this coach, and I only asked him two questions. I said, first and foremost, I'm 55. Is it possible for a man like me to get fit? He goes, oh, yeah. And I said, okay, great. And then the second thing I asked him was, I said to him, how long do you think it'll take? He said, 6 months to a year. I said, all right, I can live with that. I said, let's start. I'd not even asked him what he charged at that point. Gave him my credit card, and we got going. It was a very reasonable investment. Within 6 months, I went from 227 to 169. I went from fat to fit. Okay. At 55. And at 56, almost 57, I did my first bodybuilding competition. I went on stage at 167 pounds, shredded, and that's because I made a decision, I made a commitment, I was coachable, and I invested in myself, and I got resourceful because I had to do what it took. And believe me, it wasn't a straight line. There was ups, there was downs in the whole process. So if, for example, you want to take your coaching business full time, first thing you need to do is make that decision that that's what you're going to do. The second thing you're going to need to do is learn how to get good at getting clients. Because without clients, you ain't got a business. You got a hobby, right?
Right.
That's the commitment.
Yes. Now, say that again. Say that again. I need to.
Without clients, you don't have a business. You have a hobby, right? That's a fact.
Mhm.
And then thirdly, you got to hire a good coach, someone like me, and you got to take the coaching. Fourthly, you got to get resourceful because it's going to take time, it's going to take energy, and it's going to take money. And the investment in you is super, super important. Businesses thrive on investment. Investment is what causes businesses to go from an idea or nothing, vapor, to success. And you've got to invest in you. You've got to invest in you. And if you've never invested in you, start now. If in 2024 you invested, say, $1,000 in you, immediately triple that. If you invested $5,000 in you, immediately triple it. Because if you do that, you're going to at least double your income.
Mm-hmm.
Robin Sharma, who used to be a client of mine, said to me years ago, he said, Nicky, if you want to double your income, all you got to do is triple your investment in personal and professional development. That's it.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. And that's where I think a lot of people miss the mark. But first of all, Nicky, I want to say, man, you were very fortunate to have a father as strong as you did. For one, to be a Christian in Iran, that was probably took more guts than a lot of people would have. And then to have the confidence to stand up against the regime and get you guys out of there, to get you guys started, you were very lucky on that and very fortunate.
I prefer blessed to lucky because I don't think luck had anything to do with it. I think
I can agree with that.
Ordained and blessed.
Something that you said a minute ago too is that you got to make the decision. And I think for coaches and then people that even need a coach or want a coach, what stops them is self-doubt.
Yeah. They
think that, okay, I'm going to invest this money and it's still not going to work. Or as a coach, I'm going to invest in myself, but I'm still not going to be very good. Like you said, you got to be prepared to suck at the beginning.
Yep.
And as a coach, while you're bringing people along, you're also growing as well. So that way you can get to that average, then you get to the good. But I think the self-doubt right in the very beginning is what stops most people, and they just stay in the grind. Instead of burning the boats and going all in and failing, I think that's better than not trying at all.
You're 100% correct. Self-doubt is what kills most people's ability to be the best version of themselves. And I got one thing to say to that, right? That's that belief in yourself wobbling. That's exactly when you need somebody to believe in you. My father just plain old believed in people, all sorts of people, not just his kids. And that was what allowed him to touch so many people in a positive way. And I've known tons of people like that in my life. I've been very blessed in that regard. And that's what I aim to be for everybody. Whether you're my client, my friend, a casual acquaintance, I look to see what's great about you. I look to see what, maybe you don't see in yourself. Because someone did that for me. And I just feel an obligation to pass that on to other people. And I get energy from seeing someone else succeed, especially when I had something to do with their success.
Oh, yeah.
If you go on Instagram and you look me up, Nicky Billou, I posted a photo of my son. He was a soccer player, And this is a photo of him from behind, like a picture of him wearing his uniform, kind of like leaning to one side. It's a really awesome picture. And what I wrote in that post is I said, you know, a father has a son. And in an instant, he knows that there's someone he loves way more than he loves himself. And all of life basically points strongly in a focal point toward this son. Yeah, that's the one. Yeah, there you go. Right.
Yeah,
Here.
guys, if you want to follow, I'll go ahead and throw this in the chat. But
Yeah. A
yeah, I
man
just wanted
has a son. This is what I rate. His life changes forever. There's now someone in it that means so much more to him than anyone or anything else. His son is the love of his life, the apple of his eye. He tries things, he does things, he learns, he grows. And along the way, he shows his father that all his love, all his guidance, all his hopes have helped create a man. Nothing else on this earth has more meaning and more value. Kayvon, son, it is the honor of my life to see you step strongly into manhood. Mere words are pitifully inadequate to express how proud of you I am. This is my boy. He's 18 now. He's about to turn 19 in a few weeks. He finished high school in July, graduated. He was all set to go to university. He started working for the same company that I hired to help get me in shape. A month and a half in, he comes to me and he says, Dad, I don't want you to get mad, but I'm not going to university. I'm going to work full time. And he said, maybe I'll go next year. We'll see. This kid has been working 7 days a week. 7 days a week since July. Okay. He's not taking a single day off.
Jeez.
Not even Christmas. He had clients on Christmas Day. He's training people, fitness training. So now I'm one of his fitness training clients. I was his first one just to help give him a start. And the other day, he did 10 clients in a row without a break. He's 18, not even 19 yet. He's paying his own way in life. He pays his own insurance. He pays his own, car, gas, groceries. He helps out with rent with his mom. This is what a man's job is. You know what I'm saying? This is what,
Mhm.
this is what makes me proud, man. You know, if I were to pass away today, God forbid, I intend to live for a great many years yet. But if I were to, I think on my epitaph, on my gravestone, what they'd say about me was he was a good father, he's a good friend, and he's a good teacher.
It's really powerful, man. It's really, really powerful because we talk as well with the guys, not just in the community, but across the space on just being the best example for the future, even if life hands you a bunch of crap. Be the best example, and I think that you're living exactly what your father was to you, and it's very, very beautiful.
Thank you, brother.
Yeah, well, I think the most important aspect of leadership, and a lot of people don't understand this, is lead by example.
Yes,
You
sir.
you can coach, you can talk to people, you can have great lines. However, if you're not living the path that you're trying to take them down, you're not going to be as good. You might still be able to help them. However, you're still not going to be as good as someone that has set the example. And as a financial coach, that's makes it even more difficult because I've got to make sure that I stay debt free if I'm going to try to coach that, and stay on my path as long as well as theirs. So, it's easy to say, okay, I can teach you the steps. However, but if I'm leveraging debt and $25,000 in credit card debt and living outside my means, I'm not going to be as good as coach as if I'm living it by example than I would be just teaching it.
And that's a good point. And I want to turn this as a question to you, Nicky, about that, because a lot of people that want to start a business, they deal with a lot of imposter syndrome. It's like, what makes me credible to even be here? And I think that, yeah, I think you've got some good information on that, because, for example, like, let's say Kevin slips, like, and he does go into debt again. Well, then he's not living the authentic personality he's trying to put out there, because it's not authentic anymore. So I'm very curious your thoughts on that. How does one even become like a credible voice?
Well, so that's a good question. I would argue that it's the very thing that you're struggling with that gives you the authority to help other people who are struggling with it overcome it. So let me give you an example. Who's the greatest basketball player of all time, in your opinion? Anybody have an opinion on this?
I mean, I would probably say Kobe.
Okay.
Either Kobe or Michael Jordan. Hey,
Yeah,
you guys can.
just because
Michael,
of my age.
Kevin, what do you say?
Michael Jordan. Yeah, just
Michael
because of
Jordan.
my age, I grew up. I was a teenager when he
Yeah,
was
yeah.
at
All
the peak
right,
of his
fair.
game. And
Yeah. And Josh, what about you? Who's the greatest basketball player of all time?
Oh, it's Michael Jordan for
Michael Jordan.
hands
Okay.
down.
I'm going to tell you that I disagree with all three of you. I think it's Wilt Chamberlain, but we're going to say for the purpose of this argument, it's Michael Jordan.
All right. All right.
All right. Video game records, man. That's all I have to say. Video game records. But let's say it's Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan is not a man who struggled with the game of basketball. Would you agree? Michael Jordan is a man who played and had an intensity and a ferocity. My understanding of Michael Jordan's attempts to teach and coach other people is they've been mediocre at best. Okay. All right. At best. That's being charitable. He actually sucked at coaching. Okay. He was well below average. Now, who's the most successful basketball coach of all time?
That's
I
a good
actually do
question.
not know.
I can throw Pat Riley out there.
Pat Riley did very well, but he's not the most successful. The most successful basketball coach of all time was Michael Jordan's coach, Phil Jackson. 11 championships. He coached Kobe and he coached Michael. So 11 championships.
And he won 2 as a player.
Yep. And he won 2 as a player. But did you know that Phil Jackson as a player was a journeyman at best? At best. He was average. Nobody calls Phil Jackson one of the greatest basketball players of all time. He's not in the Hall of Fame as a player. He is in the Hall of Fame as a coach. He struggled with basketball. It was his very struggle with basketball that allowed him to teach other people how to play it well, how to win championships. Okay. So I'll give you another example outside the world of sports. Again, not to have a political discussion. But I'll come out
dude,
there.
I love the political discussion.
I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Donald Trump's. I love the Donald. I call him Donaldus Maxim.
I got him somewhere. I got like 4. I bought 4 shirts that said Trump won again. I got a whole bunch of them, and I'm a huge fan of like.
Do you see this? You see
Yes,
this
sir.
book? The Great Patriot Boycott book, written by Wayne Allen Root and me. Do you see what it says in that starburst?
Endorsed by President Donald J. Trump.
On Truth Social. Yes, sir. I love the Trump. I love him. I'm gonna just come out flat and tell you I love the Trump.
Hey, I'm all for it too. I'm trying to find my Steven Crowder.
Let me come back to my point.
But let's get back to the point.
Come back to my point. Donald Trump has been the most effective pro-life president in U.S. history, even more effective than the great and sainted President Ronald Reagan. The Supreme Court justices that he appointed directly led to the overturn of the Roe v. Wade decision, which basically has reduced the number of abortions that have taken place in the United States conservatively by 5 million in the last 2.5 years. Okay. And yet Donald Trump, shall we say, is not the most perfect Christian of all time.
I don't know. I don't know what you're talking about.
No, just listen. Hasn't necessarily always obeyed all of the 10 commandments, especially the one about thou shalt not commit adultery. That one. You know what I'm talking about? And yet his very struggle to be a good and honorable and upright man has made him the perfect warrior and champion for Christians and Christian values. You're a coach and you're struggling with something. That's what you need to teach. It's the very act of teaching it that will make you better at it.
That's a great point.
So I have a question for you: as a coach and throughout your long, extensive career as a coach, what have you noticed have been some of the more common pitfalls people tend to fall into? Like we kind of touched on a couple already, where there's a little bit of that self-doubt and a little bit of like not willing to make that investment. But what other pitfalls have you come across pretty commonly that people have? Because I'm sure we all have our own from our own experience.
That's a good question. So I got a good answer for you, brother.
Oh, I'm ready.
So there's a lot of coaches that love to coach. You know what I'm talking about? They love to coach. They are like good at it. They deliver. What they don't love to do is they don't love to get clients to sell. They don't want to be seen as pushy or salesy or any of that jazz. Problem is that they don't go after business they should have gone after, and they don't get that business. So they stay stuck, or their business dips. And then some charlatan marketer with no scruples comes in and scoops up that business, and boom, everybody loses. The coach loses because they don't get the business. The client loses because they don't get help. Even the charlatan loses because what goes around comes around. The sum total of goodness in the world goes down. And that's because, sales has this bad rap to it. But, there used to be a time where salespeople were like revered. They were seen as consultants, as people who helped. And, what I want to do is I want to help a lot of coaches stop thinking about it as sales, to start thinking about it as service, as advocacy, as championing.
Really, this is interesting. It's interesting that you're saying this, and I want you to dive deeper. I don't mean to cut you off on it. It's interesting because when everybody thinks about sales, they think of it, it's like it has a negative connotation. And you're saying it's about offering a way to empower somebody.
Yeah, 100%. It is about that. And I'll tell you this, I've had lots of people come to me and go, I hate selling. And I go, well, I hate selling too. Well, let me just be straight with you. Without you getting a client to agree to give you money for your service, you don't have a business, you have a hobby. So you need to get over that. And you need to reframe it from selling and being pushy to being an advocate, to being a servant leader. I had a client, our mutual friend, Paul, he came to me and he said, I don't want to push people. I don't want to sell people. And I said, Paul, I don't want you to push or sell people, but you do want to grow a business. He goes, yeah, I do. And I said, and what you're doing is you're helping these fellas, these husbands, long-term marriages, fix dead bedrooms. He goes, yep. And I said, what happens when there's a dead bedroom in a marriage? He says, well, that marriage is doomed.
Everything falls apart.
Yeah, because that wife is no longer attracted to you. At some point, some other dude is going to get her attention, and your family is going to break apart. Your kids are going to be hurt. You are going to lose half your net worth. You're going to be emotionally devastated. And your woman is going to lose her family and what she had. And I go, Paul, do you know what this feels like? He goes, yeah, it happened to me. And I go to him, I want you to go deep into that feeling. Go back then. And he goes, man, that was awful. And I go, if there's a man in front of you who's dealing with that, are you okay with that call ending and him not having a solution to that pain? And he looked at me and he said, you are good. Okay. And he's fighting for that now. He's not selling. He's fighting to help men whose wives don't have any interest in banging them anymore, to want to bang them with enthusiasm, to save families, to save marriages, to save the structure and fabric of American society. Now, that is exciting. That is something to fight for. And he gets paid to do it. Pinch me.
Yeah.
I've got a great example of that too, because as a financial coach, I deal with people that are in financial trouble. And that would make it really hard for me to say, okay, I'm going to help you. However, it costs X amount of dollars. But I found a way around that by saying, okay, we're going to go over your budget. And if you're honest with me, we're going to find an honest budget of where your money's actually going. And I can guarantee you that I can find your monthly fee in frivolous spending that you're already wasting on other things. So when it comes down to it, you're not paying me anything. You're just redirecting it from where it was going and being wasted before to me to help you get on that path. And I have found that that works a lot better. But I was even nervous about saying that because when you got someone on the brink of bankruptcy, someone that's has more money going out than coming in, it's very difficult for me, who's not a salesman, to come in there and say, okay, yeah, I'm here to help. I'm going to find out the problem. I'm going to inject hope. We're going to find a solution. However, my time cost X. But once I found that angle and had a couple aha moments with some of the first clients that I worked with, now I've overcome that fear, that anxiety, lack of confidence, that self-doubt that I had in the beginning of asking for money to help you with your finances, because it's almost counterintuitive when you think about it. Well, when I thought about it, but then when I realized that there's angles that I can take to give them the aha moment and find that $500 a month in their budget that they're already spending on something else that can come to me and we can get you on that path, I got a lot more confident in my sales tactics.
Yeah, I mean, you know, the way I always frame up sales, and I developed this maybe about, maybe like 7 years ago. I really started getting into the sales side of the equation more professionally. Was that, you know, I don't necessarily think of myself ever as a salesman. So anyone asks me like, what do you do? And I'm a middleman between people with problems and solutions. That's it. I help there's people with problems and I help facilitate some solutions out there. But, you know, and that really applies to anything and everything. So I really do like that, you know, concept you touched on, which was that, you know, if you can't get over that hump or that hurdle because you think of it as sales, right? You really are depriving people of a value-added service and solution. So that concept of the collective goodness gets lowered because somebody's going to get that business and they could be a charlatan out there, right? Like you were saying. So I think that's a really important key takeaway is that, you know, focusing on the collective goodness and making sure that, you know, you can get over that hump so you can reach your right audience and get the people that the help that they actually need versus them get scooped up by somebody else, because somebody is going to get that business. It might as well be you with, you know, good intentions and the ability to actually help that person.
Brother, yeah. Amen. 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 If you got people that are in front of you and they're hurting and you can help them, you need to focus on helping them can't be thinking about yourself. Are they going to like me? Are they going to want to do business with me? It's not what it's all about, man. Who cares? This is a person who's, a fellow human being, and they're in suffering. The only question is, can I help them? And if the answer is yes, I'm going to move forward like an absolute savage with my stand. There's no hesitation, no being a pussy. If, as an example, I was talking to Hutz, and, he told me, man, I'm sick of what I'm doing for a day-to-day job. I'm not saying that's the case, Hutz, but I'm just saying, let's say you said that. You said,
sure.
It's causing me deep pain every day to go to work. I need to be doing my mission. I need to have my own coaching business. And, and I could see that his main gig was he just needed to learn how to sell. Well, one of the things I have is I got a sales accountability program. And I just go, Hutz, here's the deal. You need somebody who's going to teach you how to sell, teach you how to overcome objections, and hold your feet to the freaking fire. And that's me. And this is the program that I have. And these are the results I've gotten for people like your friend Paul.
Dude, I have to say, I got to pause you. When Paul shared with me the figures that he made after going through this process with you, I was like, dude, no, you're fucking lying to me. And it was the most money he's ever made. And it's not about money, but
it's not.
It's not about money. It's about what you're able to provide to people. And like, oh my God, like to see, because gosh, like that really resonated with me. Is like, it's not about trying to like make money off a client. Like why, when we think about psychiatrists or therapists or whatever, what is it about therapists? Why do they have their clients for so long? Isn't the whole purpose to go through a program, get you like up to speed, good to go, and then set you off? Like, why are we still continuing to see each other all the time? And that's not the business model. The business model really is like, I know the value of what I can actually do for you so that I never have to. And that's always the stance that I've taken with my clients. I want to get to the point where I never have to fucking speak to you again. I tell people that on every single initial call. However, we end up becoming friends. It's inevitable when you have that type of relationship over time. But I always tell them that, like, look, you're here for one thing only, to solve this problem. Let's solve the problem together. And then I want to equip you with the tools so that you don't have to come back to somebody like me in the future.
Amen, man. Amen. And like I said, if I were in that conversation with you and I knew that you needed what I had to say, I'm going to take a bold stand for me to help you. There's not going to be no wishy-washiness about it. You know what I mean? And some people in the world of coaching go, well, you don't want to be pushy and pressure people. And here's what I say. There's no pressure on my end. I'm just taking a stand for you. You get to choose. You get to say yes. You get to say no at the end of the day. And I also tell them, any pressure you feel is the pressure that you're putting on yourself because your business is failing and you have lost faith in yourself. You've lost faith in your dream, and that the pressure of your hopes and dreams being crushed is what you're feeling. What I'm doing here, this is called a bold stand for you and your dream. There's no pressure over here. And people go, holy shit, you're right, because I am right.
I got a question.
That's how I teach people to have a sales conversation, to have because I'm not getting money off my clients. That's not the frame. I'm rescuing my clients from a life of freaking despair.
Yes.
And from their dreams being on the ash bin of their life, the history of their life. One of my clients was a man named Carl Kramer. I met him in June of 2018. He was in a BNI group with another client of mine, a young fellow who was a dumbass, but was making $1 million a year as a personal trainer working with me. And Carl used to be an executive vice president in a manufacturing concern here in Ontario. And he quit that because he was burned out from working 60 hours a week, and he'd become a business coach. And he only worked 25, 30 hours a week, but he only made 70 grand a year as a business coach. So he wanted to make same kind of money he used to make. When he saw how Dan was doing, he came to me. Signed up with me, started working with me, part of my programs. First thing we figured out with Carl was, hey, Carl, buddy, what do you do for people? He says, I can help them with any business problem. I go, that's your problem.
It's not niche down.
First thing we did is we helped him narrow his focus. There's a whole bunch of processes we went through with his past clients. And he figured out that his ideal client was a solo practitioner lawyer who wanted to scale. So his messaging got really tight because of that. And gents, within 6 months, Carl went from 70,000 a year, which is about 6 grand a month, to 50 grand a month, which is about 600 grand a year. And he was still only working 25, 30 hours a week. Now, Carl was 57 when I met him, same age I am now.
This is insane. That growth.
He passed away 4 years later. He died from pancreatic cancer. That was shitty, right? And people say to me, oh my God, it's so terrible. Look, I mean, he got successful, and then look at all these bad things that happened to him. He died. And I said to them, and I'll say this to you men, Carl Kramer died having fulfilled his dream of becoming a successful business coach. He loved what he did. He made plenty of money doing it. He helped people, and he went to his maker a fulfilled man. We're all going to go to our maker. Do you want to go to your maker with an epitaph that says died with his potential fully intact? Or do you want to say he lived life as the best version of himself? I'm proud that I helped Carl Kramer live life as the best version of himself.
It's so interesting that you say that, and I'm just going to share like a personal story here, because this is why I got into doing the dating and relationship coaching. I went through a really, really bad relationship fresh out of college that kind of changed the entire trajectory of my life. And through that, it got so bad that I ended up getting arrested on domestic violence accusations that, of course, like in time were thrown out, but still required a lot of lawyer fees and bail and all that type of crap. And it completely upended my life, where I had to like go back and move in with my parents, and it just sucked. Everything just sucked. And when I actually got into this space where it was like some of the red pill, like PUA, like dating and relationship stuff, I ended up just taking a leap. And then within one of those communities, I just started to offer some advice, because I've never had like a terribly difficult time when it comes to women. I kind of understand how you have to carry yourself and how you have to look and yada, yada, yada. But I didn't realize the impact I was able to make. And I actually was planning, my suicide. And I had told myself, I gave myself permission. You can kill yourself once you help change the trajectory of one other man's life and guide him into the happy, healthy relationship that you know is possible. And the funny part about that is that once I did it for the first time, I didn't want to kill myself anymore, because I was like, this was too easy. This was too quick. I want to do it again. And I want to do it again. And then I want to do it again. And I kept doing it. And that's why I'm doing what I do today, specifically because I know that I haven't fully lived to the purpose that I meant to be here for. And it's stupid that I even thought about things that way in the past, but I love the beauty in what you just shared, because once he lived his purpose, then he can go to our maker. I really, really love that. It was very, very beautiful because it really resonates with my personal journey.
Thank you, Hudson.
Yeah. And one thing I've found as a coach is that you often learn a lot about yourself, but you also just learn a lot in general from your clients. So it's kind of a two-way street. So, my final question to you, Nicky, would be, what was, do you have an example of a client that really you learned an incredible amount from, that either they, challenged you in a certain way, or you went in and you kind of felt like you had a really good groove, and just by the nature of what they needed done, you wound up like learning something that, forced you to kind of like grow and evolve a little bit. I'd be curious to hear your experiences on that front.
Well, that's a good question. Every client I've had has taught me something, but I'll tell you, it's a good kind of final story. In January of 2018, 7 years ago, I was introduced to a woman. I'm going to call her Julie, not a real name. She came to us, not in a good place in her business. She had been the country director for Canada for one of the world's largest and oldest personal development firms. And she was very successful at it. And she brought a fellow on board to help her run the company. And for the first year, everything was great. But after a year, the two of them didn't really see eye to eye anymore. And there was a board of directors involved. And they sided with him and they fired her. Kind of like Steve Jobs back in the day with John Scully and Apple in the 80s. How do you get fired from a company you start? Well, with the board of directors, very easily. And for a year and a half, she was bereft, 18 months, right? Finally, someone introduced her to us, started working with us. And within the first month, she was successful already. She made 10K because we really helped her narrow down her focus, who she was going after, what she was offering them, all of that. We really poured into her, poured love into her, poured belief into her, all of it. And month 2, she made 12 grand. Month 3, she made $18,000. Month 4, man, she blew the doors off. She made $62,200. That was pretty crazy. Yeah, pretty crazy. Now, she lives in Ottawa. I live in Toronto. It's about a 5-hour drive. At the time, my oldest son, whose photo you saw, he was a soccer player. He was 12. And he had a tournament in Ottawa. She has a son his age. So I called her up and I asked her, I said, hey, we're coming to Ottawa for this tourney. Why don't you bring your son over and, you guys can watch my boy play and maybe all of us can have lunch. Good client relations and all that. She said, sure. So we did that. My son's team won the tourney, which was fantastic. We had the lunch. Everybody had a good time. My son and I drove back home. A few weeks later, she was part of a year-long mastermind and educational program that I offer to entrepreneurs. It's about $40,000 a year to be a part of that. And we'd come to the portion where I offer a registration opportunity into this year-long program, right? $40K a year. And the way I do it is I don't pitch. I ask our people to share what they're getting out of it. And I ask them to tell the people why they think they should join. Very effective technique. So I'll turn around, I look at the audience, and I go, who'd like to share their experience? Normally, people put up their hand, and I pick somebody. Not this time, man. Girl just bounded up on stage, almost knocked me on my head. And I'm like, okay. So I back up. She's at the front of the stage. She's looking at everybody and she's not saying anything. And then I see her shoulders start to shake, go like this. And I'm like, oh, what's going on? And then I hear her sob. And I go, oh, shit, she's crying. Like any man faced with a crying woman, my first thought is, what did I do wrong? You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
So, girl is crying. My lady works with me, comes up with a box of tissues, and she gratefully accepts it. And then she turns around and looks at me, and in between her tears and her sobs, she said, Nicky, when you and your son came to Ottawa to visit with me and my son, when he was in the car, said to me with all the enthusiasm of a 12-year-old boy, Mommy, 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 who are we going to go meet? And she looked at him and she said, oh, sweetheart, we're going to go meet Nicky Billou and his son. And she says, all of a sudden, my dear sweet boy got very quiet and said, oh, Mommy, are we going to go meet the man who saved our family? Now,
Oh
men,
my God.
I am an old school Persian alpha male. I do not cry in public. But on that day, I cried like a little girl. I started bawling, and she started bawling harder. We hugged, and everybody just, you could see everyone, the energy in the room was awe. And then she is sobbing and saying, when I first came to see you, okay, I hadn't paid the mortgage in months because I hadn't made any money. And, you know, her husband was an artist. He was a photographer. He didn't make a lot of money. And the bank was about to foreclose on our home, is what she told me. And she says, me and my husband, we were fighting like cats and dogs in front of our 3 young boys. They were freaked out. They thought we were going to break up. I thought we were going to break up. Working with you allowed me to make enough money to pay back what we owed on the mortgage. And so we saved our home and we stopped fighting about money, and that saved our family. So, men, I'm looking at her, and after she sat down, I normally call on 2 or 3 people. I didn't call on anybody else. Nobody could top that, you know? And so there were 8 prospects in the room for this high ticket program of ours. And we hand out these registration forms for people to fill out, put in their information and whatnot. Normally, there's some people that say, yes, I'm in. There's some people that say, no, I'm not. And there's some people that don't say yes and don't say no. I got to have a conversation with them to get them off the fence one way or another. Not on this day, though. On this day, for the first time, we had a 100% enrollment rate. And in fact, I did not need to have a conversation with anybody. They all enrolled right away. Not because I'm a great salesman, because I'm not, but because that little boy, he was a great salesman.
That little boy essentially pointed out to the mother, this changed your life, and this is the most beautiful gift that you've been able to give me.
Yeah.
And I think that the talent that you provide speaks for itself. Go ahead.
So after that day, what this taught me, to answer Josh's question, is that this is not about me. This is not about, you know, what I'm going to get or any of that crap. God put me here on this earth to do something, to lead people, to teach them, to uplift them, to believe in them, to give them love, pour into them. When I do that, he blesses me greatly. And all I need to do every day is remember that. That's what I love.
I love that.
Yeah,
I absolutely love
very
that.
well
That's
said.
that's what keeps me going with all of it. Um, we are at time here. That's a lot. Jeez, Nicky, you've given us so much wisdom here, and I definitely resonate with how you kind of view the world and how you navigate it.
Thank you.
Just to wrap up here, I don't know. Did you guys have any final thoughts, Kevin?
Now, I
Were
just
you gonna?
wanted to caveat on what Nicky just said. My personal mentor, Chris Hogan, he basically said the same thing. He was like, "Yeah, as a coach, you got to ask questions, understand the problem, provide guidance, and inject hope. That's what you've got." And that last one, injecting hope, is the most important thing. Always keep their eyes on the positive. No matter how negative it is, you keep them positive and inject hope. And I think that goes along with what you just said. So I think that's, as coaches or even as a person with a coach, keep the hope alive and keep the positive in your mind, because the negative is too easy to concentrate on, because yeah, it can always be bad. We always know that what can go wrong, but if you keep what can go right and keep that hope alive that you can do it and you're going to do it, that is what's the hardest thing, but that's the most important thing.
I love it. Josh, do you have any final thoughts?
No, I mean, my final thoughts is, it's a pleasure and honor to, have this conversation, to have you on here. And, really the big takeaway is that collective goodness and putting your clients forward and putting them first, right? Because anytime I get the question of, hey, what's your success rate? I always say my success rate is 0%, because all the success is my client's success. It's not mine. I'm just here to help be a facilitator for it. But in reality, it's all theirs. So, being able to really reemphasize that point, and especially with such a great and vivid example, I think that's definitely something that I'm grateful to hear that story, but also glad that we could have this conversation to be able to put that out there as a way to have other people get more exposure to it. So yeah, it's been an honor and privilege to have you on here, sir.
Thank you, Josh. I appreciate it, brother. God bless you.
And it's absolutely fantastic. That collective goodness. I mean, hell, I'm going to go ahead and plug it right now. That's what's so fantastic about the Men of Now community with what we do there. And we just had a fantastic start to the year with our conversation the other night. And there's so much more amazing things that are coming. And it's member led. It's member led. It's what the people want, but we're just trying to help facilitate what the people need as well. That's kind of the balance that's going on, what they need versus what they want, and just set them up to live the most fulfilling lives possible. I mean, we're talking here about being coaches and entrepreneurs. Not everybody is, built to be that way, and that's okay. But for those that are, and even those that aren't, like, you can always find something here. So we will be, and we've talked about it, we're going to be relaunching the website and enrollment. That's going to be coming up in the next couple of weeks here. So definitely be on the lookout for that. Nicky, yes. Oh my God, this is actually more of a spiritual conversation than I was expecting, but in the best way possible, because I feel like we resonate with each other in the way that we view the world. So this was a very, very fun experience. I want to give you the last word here on where people can find you, to maybe get some more information. I know you got your website and whatnot, but however you want to plug yourself or let people know. I know you got something coming up in Toronto soon, right?
Well, actually, next week we've got our 3-day event, but it's kind of late for that. We're going to have another event in April for that on thought leadership. But look, if you're a man in business, if you're a coach, if you're any sort of an entrepreneur, and a part of 2025 for you is you want to grow, you want to take it to the next level, you're my people. You're the kind of folks I'm looking to help. So get on my calendar. And the best way to do that is to go to eCircleacademy.com/appointment. But if you just want to like connect with me, I'm the only Nicky Billou on the planet. Just type my name, any social media platform. Just, send me a message and say, hey, I heard you on the Minute of Now show. I'd like to connect. Happy to connect.
It's great. We
Good
sure
stuff.
appreciate that. And thank you so much for coming on our show. We do this every Tuesday, and if you want to come back anytime, you're more than welcome. But
I'd love to, man. This was a lot of fun. You
this
men
was
rock.
invaluable. Thank you so much.
Good stuff, guys. Well, I will wrap us there. 2025. Get ready because it is going to be the best year of your life.